And there we go.
Welcome to Tuesday's Table Talk with your student support counselors here at Yes Prep Southeast. Our goal, as always, is to make sure that we're sharing relevant information for our students and for our families. I am Ms. Fernandez.
I'm Mrs. Daniel.
And today we have a special guest here to talk to us about guiding your teens through healthy relationships. So we're going to name this episode Love Lessons, okay? So we have, go ahead, sorry.
No problem at all. We understand that navigating teen relationships is a lot. We kind of live in the feelings realm here in the work that we do, and we can only imagine just the amount of things that parents are navigating at home when it comes to communication styles and boundaries. And now we're going to add in social media aspect to that. We want to make sure that our parents have or are working on building their toolkit into how to support their students, because they are building and nurturing relationships now. We want to make sure they do that in a healthy way so that it begins now and lasts until adulthood. So if you are a parent of a sixth grader who thinks they're in a for real relationship that it's going to stand the test of time, or you're a parent of an 11th grader who is in a full-on relationship that they think is going to stand the test of time, this episode is for you.
Yes. So today we are joined by Mr. John Reyes, who's a prevention and education manager over at AVDA, and he'll talk to us a little bit about his organization and what they do for the community.
Well, thank you all for having me here. I'm looking forward to sharing. AVDA, Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse, is a nonprofit organization that's been in the greater Houston area. This year will be 45 years.
Wow.
And primarily the services we provide is free legal services for survivors of domestic violence, everything from protective orders to divorce, child custody, child support kind of things. But we also try to provide services for all those impacted. So we provide free counseling, whether it's individual or group counseling for survivors and children of survivors, or children survivors themselves. And as far as the realm of the perpetrator, the abuser, we are one of a handful of organizations that's licensed by the state of Texas to provide battery intervention and prevention, which is BIP. And we do that in like 7 different counties in the greater Houston area. The only difference between all our services is BIP is a pay-for program, whereas everything else that we offer for free. And when BIP first started, 35 years ago, yeah, I know, time just flies. A lot of times it was just people that were wanting to better their relationships, understood that they had that difficulty to deal with in their personal life and went to seek help. Today, I would say the majority of the people that go in there are court appointed, whether it's probation, parole, or children's protective services, family services will send an abusive parent to the classes, and it's part of their recovery.
Yeah.
So, and now what I do and what our outreach department does is, me personally, I go into middle schools, high schools, juvenile detention centers, community colleges. I talk to young people and adults about abuse in teen relationships, healthy teen relationships, and when I speak to groups of just young men, what healthy, respectful manhood looks like. And again, as much as I've been working with young people for decades now, I never cease to stop learning from them. So a lot of my information comes directly from them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's get into it. We're going to start our conversations about how to build the next generation with emotional intelligence, healthy and self-aware, making sure that we're giving them the tools pretty much with this episode. So, Ms. Daniel.
All right, we always start off with a warm-up question, something that the three of us will answer just based on our own experience. So, thinking about when you were a teen, for me that was many, many years ago.
And I've got y'all beat.
What did communication look like with your family when it came to the topic of healthy relationships? Did your families have that conversation? If so, what did it look like?
I would say that conversation never happened in my household. I think my parents just raised my sister and I and expected us to learn based on how they interacted with each other. It just never came up, and I guess I'll just learn from their behaviors with each other on how to navigate my own relationships getting older. But to say that we ever sat down at a table like this to say this is what you should expect, this is what you should, I guess, be okay with, that just never happened at my house.
For me, my parents got divorced when I was 10, and my dad was pretty much out of the picture, not necessarily gone, but non-interactive at all by the time I was 13. So again, those conversations didn't happen. My older sister, by the time I was 13. My older sister was pregnant and moving on. So again, my mom and I don't think we ever had those conversations. I think she'd ask general questions, and as a boy, I just would not answer them. It's fine. It's good. Oh,
Everything
Mom,
is
I'm not even
okay.
there. I'm not even wanting to do that. So, and good or bad, I think that's a generational thing. Because
Yeah.
young people today will just ignore the conversation more so
Yeah.
than have it.
Yeah, similar for me. My parents, we didn't have that conversation. I think what I was telling Bessie earlier was we had the conversation when it came to what the gentleman in my life wasn't doing. Like, he needs to come to the door and shake my hand. He needs to come and talk to me, but not necessarily how to nurture and cultivate a relationship that had boundaries, that was communicative. It wasn't until something happened my parents then stepped in. And I don't know why, because from what I see, they modeled a very healthy relationship. I think they were just trying to figure out kind of where they fit in with having that conversation. So that's why this is so important.
And I think part of it too is generationally, especially the generation, my mom's generation and hers before that. They didn't really get involved in that kind of stuff. It's like we don't talk about those things because talking about those things may lead to talking about bad things, and we just don't want to talk about bad things.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we just move forward.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're learning by our example, and again, good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we get in deeper, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, how do you define what a healthy relationship is? Like, what should it look like? What should it feel like?
Wow. When I talk to young people about healthy relationships, I have a full 1 hour presentation on
yeah.
healthy relationships. But when I talk about healthy relationships, I explain to them first and foremost that the only person you're in charge of or in control of in a relationship is yourself. So that the keys to a healthy relationship don't have to do with other people. It's about you and how you understand you and how you have expectations for you. Again, just quoting my presentation, the 3 keys that I put to a healthy relationship are loving yourself. You've got to care about what happens to you. Because if you don't, you're going to let other people not care about you. The second is good communication, and I think that's probably one of the bigger keys.
Yeah.
How do we talk to other people? How do we expect to be treated? How do we treat others? So again, that whole expectation of honesty and feeling comfortable and trusting people to have conversations. That's the next part. And staying calm when you're upset. I think it's a big key too.
Yes.
So good communication. And the last one is trust, which trust is actually boundaries. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. Ask those questions. Trust people to a certain extent. You're not going to be able to have good relationships if you're keeping people too far away. But at the same time, there's boundary. What's my time boundary? What's my emotional boundary? What's my digital boundary?
Yep.
What's my physical boundary? All of those things, and how do we balance all that? And I tell young people, know who you are, know what you want, and parents, if you did a good job of giving them morals, values, and beliefs, their character development, as long as they never, I tell them, don't change who you are for someone else. If you're changing, change for yourself. You want to better you, that's great. But if you're changing for someone else, that's never healthy. That means they don't respect who you are.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Love that. Love that.
So for our parents or caregivers, what is the first step in having those conversations about what a healthy relationship is with your teenager?
Again, for me, I think the first part is understand what a relationship looks like for them. So sometimes if you have those good open lines of communication with your kids, just ask them those questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any, do you like anybody? Do you know what does it look like for you and your friends? Partially seeming like you're totally clueless, and the other part about wanting to actually learn, they like that because to them now all of a sudden they're the content expert.
Yeah.
If you don't want to get to that point, we're going to talk later about resources. Find resources that are going to help you figure out what it looks like to them beforehand, just so you don't feel like you're a deer in the headlights. And again, as we continue, I think one of the biggest ones, and I think a lot of parents don't think about it, is you're their first role model. And if you are not in healthy relationships, there is literally no way you can expect them to be in healthy relationships unless you start these difficult conversations with them. And it's not even going to be difficult because of the subject matter of dating and relationships, it's going to be difficult because they're going to point the finger at you.
Yeah.
Good or bad, developmentally. When kids get around between 10 to 12 is when they first start feeling that need for independence.
Yeah.
And they do that by looking for flaws in the adults in their lives. And once they start picking on these flaws, that affects, well, I don't need to talk to you about that. I don't need to talk to you about drinking because you're always drinking. Or you can't tell me not to smoke because you're always smoking. So if you're not having those conversations about why I do this, or I understand that this is bad, I'm working on me, they lose that, the respect level goes down a notch, and you're no longer somebody to trust with this information or to ask. I tell the kids today, you know, when it comes to, again, I know that my dad was out of the picture, but he was there. I didn't seek him out. And I know that when I was having all my questions about relationships, I wanted a man's advice, but I saw what he did in relationships with women, with his dating relationships, and they were terrible. And so I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
So why would I ever go ask that person?
Yeah.
So it made it very difficult to have that person to speak to. It became my peers. And good or bad, I tell parents it's the blind leading the blind when you're
Very
going
much
through
so,
your
because they
peers.
validate it.
They just reinforce whatever it is that you have, that you have concerns about, or you want that, reinforcement. They're just gonna, you're right.
I know you touched on this a little bit. We kind of mentioned boundaries about a question ago. So how do boundaries play a role in healthy relationships, and how do we make sure that teens establish and respect boundaries while in these relationships?
The way boundaries work in any relationship, whether it's the teens having their little, and this is the most, I've learned over the last 2 years from high school students that I interact with all the time. I changed the name of my presentation from dating abuse and healthy relationships to just relationships abuse and healthy relationships, because they don't really use the word dating. They use, we're talking. And we're talking is so broad.
Yes.
So broad.
And the more I ask questions, again, I never try to make them feel like inadequate or insecure, but the more I ask questions, the more it's like, this doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make sense, yeah.
But that's where they're at.
Yeah.
So what I tell them about boundaries is like, when you're in that, when you're ready to start talking to somebody, your boundaries are what your beliefs are, and that's what your boundaries are. So if you know that, hey, I want to talk to this person, I think that they're nice, I'm not ready for them to start touching on me, or I'm not ready to kiss anybody yet, or I'm not, whatever it is that your boundary is, physically or emotionally, or even digitally, one of the big things for them that they have to figure out is, well, when is it okay for me to mention you on social media?
Oh, that's
Because
big.
that's a
huge.
huge
That is
boundary.
huge. Yeah.
And again, parents, man, you see it with our friends, even those of us who are older, it's like, ooh, they put, it's complicated. Or they put in a relationship. Now you're like, who is that? And for them, you think about it, for them, if you know anything about teenagers, man, the spotlight, they put that spotlight on themselves. It's a forever spotlight till you get out of your teen years that everybody's looking at me, everybody, it's all about me. And so it's very pressure filled. When can we do those things? But as far as the boundaries go, I always tell them, whatever it is that you feel comfortable or uncomfortable with, tell people. You have to tell them first. The obstacle of that is, I really like this person. If I tell them this, they're going to walk away. And I think that's the biggest hurdle young people have when it comes to their boundaries in relationships is, I don't know what they're going to think if I tell them no, or if I tell them I don't like that or whatever. And I honestly believe that a lot of the bad things that the first sets of bad things that happen in teen dating relationships come from, well, I don't want that person to stop talking to me, so I give in. I'll give in to letting them see my phone, or I'll give in to letting them choose what we do, or I'll give in to sharing locations.
That's huge.
I'll give in to sending them the pictures they want. All those different things are just about, a lot of times it's about, because I just don't want to lose this person. And so again, I would let them know that no matter what, who you are, what you stand for, don't change that. That's the basis of your boundaries. It's the basis of who you are, and changing who you are for somebody else, not because you want to. It's a bad call. And it leads down bad roads.
Taking notes.
Yes.
Because it's also hard to get them to a point where they understand, like, if you're setting this standard and they don't respect it, maybe that's not the person for you. But
exactly.
they're so hell bent on, I don't want to lose them. And it's like, but is
Well,
that the person you
and-
need to be with right now?
Mm-hmm.
And good or bad too, what goes along with not only I don't want to lose them, is if you have low feelings of self-esteem already,
Yep.
you're already telling yourself, I'm lucky to have this
Yeah.
person. I'm never going to get somebody who cares about me like that. So, and of course, and I tell the kids this directly, and I tell them no disrespect, but teenagers are the most emotionally volatile creatures on the planet, so they're already on that emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely.
And I tell them it's not a bad thing. It's just chemically.
where they are
this is
developmentally.
where you're at.
All right, thinking about the signs, I know signs of unhealthy relationships, I know the bigger ones are more noticeable, the more abusive
Egregious,
or
yeah.
egregious, actually physical or maybe even sexual abuse that may be present. What are the more subtle signs that teens may miss that parents need to be aware of so they can support their kiddo?
Like you said, even when I talk to teenagers, when I ask them what does abuse look like in a relationship, they automatically say physical. Fighting,
Yeah.
physical contact. And I said, yeah, but in most relationships, abuse doesn't start like that because we like this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts out the little things we do to say to each other over and over and over again. That becomes patterns of behavior to make someone feel not good enough, to make them change the way they think, the way they act, the way they feel. The first one I would say is making fun of them. Little small insults and then say I'm playing.
Okay.
So we start off with the I'm telling you my truth and wrapping it like sarcasm. I'm telling you my truth and wrapping it in humor. That's one. I think the other one becomes the controlling, trying to tell you what you can and cannot wear, what you can and cannot do, who you can and
Right.
cannot talk to. Technology. Basically demanding access to their technology, location, like you
Sharing
said,
your
making them share locations, making them give you the password, or sometimes just grabbing your phone and going through your phone without permission.
Yeah.
All of those are signs. Again, back to controlling. Extreme jealousy. It's one thing, I could tell kids, it's one thing it's human nature for us sometimes to feel insecure or like, almost wish you had what someone else had, and that's normal. But to know all the information and still get mad and still get bent out of shape,
Yeah.
that's extreme jealousy. I think another one, if I had to say, would be quick involvement.
Yeah.
The whole, and the kids lately have been
into a
sharing me the
relationship.
whole love bombing stuff,
Yeah.
where they just give you, they just jump you're the everything.
Yeah.
And like I tell the kids, how would you feel if within 2 or 3 weeks of we're talking to somebody saying, man, I'm so in love with you? That's extreme. And so
Overwhelming.
it is, it's pressure.
Yeah.
So back to controlling, it's a pressure. And at the same time, if you know anything about emotional abuse, blaming you for everything that goes wrong. So as far as if you're looking for the subtle things,
Yeah.
again, controlling technology and access to technology or access
Right.
to you, extreme jealousy, blaming you for things that go wrong. Those are the big ones.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
even you saying that's stuff that is subtle and it'll chip away
Mhm.
at a person long term. I'm even thinking of students who may be a little more insecure going into a relationship
Yeah.
that I need, I need to be in this relationship, how much they will tolerate just to stay in that,
Yeah.
because they're already emotionally a little weak,
Yeah.
in the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's such a thin line with these things you mentioned, because even the whole sharing location thing, right? That's so normal for our kids these days. And I can see a kid taking it as, oh, they just care to know where I am. They care so much. But it's like,
I have
yes
nothing to
and no.
hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? And we'll start with the sharing of location stuff. Initially, when parties agree or parties are pressured into sharing location, it's sold as it's because I'm concerned about your well-being, your safety. I just want to make sure you made it home okay, all that kind
Right.
of stuff. But what ends up potentially happening is that I use that to keep tabs on you. It's Friday night. You don't want to go out. You said you don't want to go out. You don't feel well. I'm going to check to make sure you're home. And at that point, you're that trust barrier. Back to trust being one of the top 3
Yep.
keys to a healthy
Yeah.
relationship. Because you have access, you're tempted to break that trust barrier.
Right.
Same thing goes with access to phones. I was shocked when I started going and talking to college age kids, how many young men between 19 and 21 told me that within the first 6 months of dating somebody, it gets to the point where now I need access to your phone or your social media. And so my first initial as hearing these young men tell me this is like, may I ask, what did you do
Yeah.
to break this person's trust? And they're like, nothing, sir. I just started talking to her. It's like, then that person has a problem.
Yeah.
Because that person has trust issues from wherever it is they came
Yeah.
from,
Correct.
and they're throwing them onto you
Yeah.
unnecessarily. Now, if you're one of those people who's like, hey, even my nephew when he was a young man is like, I got nothing to hide. I don't care. Well, that's okay. But in the end, what happens when you get a communication from your mother or a family member or an old friend who's sharing something really personal with you, but because this person grabs your phone, you didn't get an opportunity to share that personal
Yeah.
moment with somebody
Yeah.
because, why are they sending you about? Again, back to the, you're an individual and then you're a member of a partnership.
Right.
And you should be respected as an individual, just like you should respect that y'all are a partnership. So
Yeah.
part of that is I have to trust you that you have your own things and your own ways of doing things, and you have to trust me and respect me for that. And if we can't, we're already starting this in a bad place.
Yeah.
So-
Now, thinking about what you just said, like, how do we empower teens to assert themselves in a relationship without harboring feelings of guilt or just being afraid of rejection or someone being mad at them for them standing up for themselves?
I think it starts with positively reinforcing to them, who are you? What do you stand for? What's important to
Yeah,
you?
values.
And,
yeah.
and as soon as they understand that those things are not bad things, and even if their morals, values, and beliefs are very selfish, that's who you are. You're telling me that's who you are. Now,
Yeah.
it may end up hurting you in the long run, but if that's who you are, stand up for what you believe in and who you are. Because, again, we all change. If you choose,
Yeah.
to change something, like, man, I am pretty selfish. I want to change some of that stuff that I've
Yeah.
written down that's important to me. I chose to do it, but I'm not going to do it because this person's over my shoulder telling me, gosh, I can't believe, and why do you always, and they're guilting me or they're nagging me into changing who I am. That's not healthy, because if I change and I don't like what I change into, now there's resentment, and that will tear that relationship apart.
Apart.
That's true.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I know we started mentioning cell phones and sharing locations and all those things. How has social media and like online dating changed how our teenagers form and navigate relationships today?
Wow, the most interesting thing that I've experienced, and again, I'm 2 generations removed from them now. I still love working with them, but I'm 2 generations removed from them now. And I think the most interesting thing, without coming up with another word for it, that I've heard from them is breaking up via text message.
Yes.
I mean, to end
my
a
word.
relationship, and I thought that was bad. And then I started hearing boys, just never text them again. Just flat out
Ghost
ghosting
them.
people.
Ghosting.
Yep.
And I'm like, really? I mean, but
Yeah.
that's I don't want,
Leave
because they
them
don't want to
alone.
talk about
Yeah.
it. They don't want to talk
Yeah.
about, again, the guilt of breaking the relationship. They'll just not speak to that person again. And because technology is their primary source of communication, I tell them when we talk about technological abuse, wonderful tool, powerful weapon when you decide to use it to
Yeah.
hurt somebody.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. And I also, how acceptable it is to say mean, harsh things via social media
Yeah.
with no feeling of accountability. My personal belief, the artist formerly known as Twitter, that is now X,
Yes.
that is just hate in one, it's all hate for the most part. And you can anonymously say so many bad things about people. You know, when I talk to parents, I say, you know, out of all the social media sites, don't let them use that one. I mean, I understand that the other ones have more video and all that kind of stuff. Again, back to statistics. Did you know that the #1 source of pornography on the internet is X?
Really?
Twitter. Yeah. Because people can share pornographic stuff without it coming up as pornography on your history. It just shows that you were on X. So you can be on X, you can search, and of course once you search once, that's what your
It's the
algorithm's
algorithm.
going to give you.
Yeah.
And you're constantly, you'll be bombarded by pornography and never ever searching for it and never having it on your, so the young people understand, when my parents check my phone, all they're going to see is X. They're not going to see,
What's in it?
yeah.
All those,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when
what's
they
inside
open
the
X, they're going to
link.
go, oh, this is Twitter. So you like reading people's stuff, but that's
There's
where they have
more.
access. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy stuff. But I think the scariest things, and back to technology and social media or whatever, even with when we talk about healthy relationships, and this isn't just teenagers. What I like to tell adults is everything that I talk about that's bad in teen relationships can also happen in adult relationships.
Absolutely.
So you got to understand
Yeah.
there's
It
teen
goes
dating
both
abuse,
ways. Yep.
there's abuse, there's domestic abuse. They're the same thing. The only thing different is who it's happening to. As far as pornography goes, we bring up the topic of pornography and addiction to pornography and just the way it affects relationships. You know, fantasy versus reality, your idea versus what you see in real life. It skews the way they think of people, and good or bad, it's not just boys that are looking at that stuff. There's a lot of young ladies that are basing who they think they are or who they think they should be in a relationship based on that stuff,
Right.
regardless of whether it was the boyfriend that introduced them to it or their friends talked to them about it.
Yeah.
They're seeing that, they're thinking this is what guys want, so that's what I have to be. And it affects the way they treat themselves.
And it's not just pornography; it's
No,
social media
in general.
No, in
there's
general.
there's a certain ideal thing that's out there, especially if it gets a lot of likes, a lot of views from people. They're like, "Oh, I need to be that."
Yeah.
Or
I need to look like this, I need to act like this, I need to dress like this,
Yeah.
I need to,
Yeah.
I need to respond this way. I think with young men, they think that being rude, being aggressive, being assertive, being domineering, that's what needs to happen. That's how you win at life. That's how you get what you want. And I guess they don't have anybody reinforcing to them that you can be a person of good moral character and still be successful, still be
Right.
well liked,
And be kind.
still be, yeah.
yeah,
That's the
They
biggest
don't
thing.
see that. And again, back to when I was reading some of these questions, a lot of times it starts with, what are we modeling? And what I've noticed too in all my years of working with children in general, from pre-K all the way up, is good or bad as parents, especially busy parents, we tend to put a lot of our energy into the little ones. And once the little ones get to
Yeah, that's
middle
huge.
school,
yeah,
well, you're a little person now.
Yeah.
You're more independent. My energy and focus is still going to go back to the little ones underneath you.
Yeah.
And so we don't give them as much as they should. Out of all the school age groups, middle school kids get ignored the most. They have the least amount of resources because we give the little kids a lot of resources so that they'll build and grow. We give those high school kids
'cause they're
resources
launching off.
because we want them to succeed. We don't want them to peter off.
Right.
And in middle school, when they have the most
Vulnerable.
free time and the most vulnerable,
yeah.
That is so true.
That's so
and
true.
I never thought about
yeah,
it.
and as
that way.
parents,
Yeah.
even if the school's not giving you that stuff, as parents, we need to be giving those kids that stuff.
pouring in more.
And it starts with, again, I know it's a question later, but it starts with, we have to invest time in them.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to get to know what they like, who are their friends, hang out with them. You know, a lot of times we're so easy. It's like, oh, you want to go hang out with so-and-so? Sure. Have them come hang out with you. You're going to learn a lot about the homes of your children's friends by
Absolutely.
seeing
When
those
they
kids
come to your
in
house.
your home.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's an important thing, and you may not have the time or you may not want to, you've got to make. Now, I tell parents all the time, once you knew you were having a child, that's at a minimum, bare minimum, an 18-year commitment.
Yeah.
At a bare minimum.
Minimum.
And if you really look at Gen Z now, they don't want to leave home.
I don't blame
They
them.
don't, but they don't want to leave home. So again, like you said, at a bare minimum, it's 18 years. It could go on even further if, that was an interesting choice y'all all made, and just understand that it's not something that, if you make light of it, then you're going to have the kids that you read about, that you see about, that you see in the news. You're going to have those because you made light of that responsibility. Now, don't get me wrong. They get to make their own choices as they move forward, and they get influenced by other people. But within the first 5 years, morals, values, and beliefs, their character has been developed by you.
Wow.
And all you keep doing at that point is reinforce, reinforce,
Reinforce.
reinforce. I am here. This is what we expect. This is what we want. I'm proud of you. I'm disappointed.
Taking notes.
Notes
Yeah.
again. First 5 years,
5
reinforce,
years, yeah.
building character.
My
I love
baby's-
that.
My baby's 4. Okay. I got one more year. So what are some guidelines for helping teens manage relationships that exist primarily in the digital space?
That is probably one of the scariest topics for a parent if you really want to boil it down to nuts and bolts. Good or bad, we like to think that we're in the know, engaged, that we know more than our young people when it comes to technology. And short of being your job or your passion is technology, you're not.
They know more.
You're not. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
for every parental application that I've ever heard of that helps parents with their young people and technology, I've heard kids tell me how they get around it.
Yeah, there's a way
So,
around
so,
it.
so
Yep.
you got to understand that staying engaged with them is important. I think the most useful, the most positive tool that you can ever have when you start these conversations about technology is let them know what you know. A lot of times, I remember as a child, my mom would have that stuff that she knew that she would just keep to herself so she could just like use it when it, but knowing that stuff at the very beginning, oh, well, my mom knows about that already. Well, my mom knows that, my mom knows that. So trying to hide that's pointless
Yeah.
because my mom knows or my dad knows. So it's important to let them know what you do know.
Okay.
I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't like the term fear tactics, but you got to let them know what really exists out there.
Yeah.
You need to let them know that just because they think they're talking to a young person on some chat board doesn't mean that that person is a young person.
Yeah.
You can't. Anybody you've never met, you don't know who they really are. So that's one thing. That's a red. That's a warning sign. I said a red flag. That's a warning sign. They may know everything about what you like, but that doesn't mean that they're actually your peer.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about when we do our presentations is how easy it is to groom somebody for trafficking. The example that we used is, and this story actually came from a young person who got groomed and trafficked and decided to share her story with the organization that gave us this information. 15 years old. She's on a chat thing. Her username, her name with 15. She was very transparent about, I'm this person, I'm 15. Started chatting with somebody who had a username with, I remember the username, just Jake 17. So her immediate reaction is
He's
a 17-year-old boy.
17-year-old, yeah.
Yep.
And they went back and forth, and this is how grooming works. That person is going to find out what you are emotionally lacking by asking questions and talking to you. And the things that they can tell that you're not getting from your parents, from your school, from your friends, whatever it is that's bringing you down, they're going to lift you up. And they're going to make you feel good about yourself. And they're going to tell you that you're worth better than what these people are doing for you. And they're going to build your trust. And like in this story, this person went on for weeks building this young lady's trust up and saying, man, I love she got to the point, I love our conversations. You make me feel like I'm not a waste of time, and blah, 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 blah. Fast forward, and in a random bit of conversation, she finds out, or she asks the age, because he said a comment, I think his comment was, I was when I was your age. And so to her, she went, which is a
she
red
clued
flag.
in,
Yeah, she
yeah.
clued in, and she's like, oh, well, how old are you? Well, he was 27. And right there and then should have been for her, well, I shouldn't be talking to you.
But
Back to his thing was, well, weren't we having a great time? Didn't you trust me? Haven't I been good to you? What does my age matter when all I'm doing is talking to you about how
Right.
good you are? So back to the guilt. Guilt is a heavy tool when it comes to grooming.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you're right. You've been nice. And you fast forward again, it becomes they end up meeting. He frames it in a way where she's in charge of them meeting. Perfectly didn't do anything. It was, again, a 27-year-old meeting with a
Right.
15-year-old, which is bad to begin with. But
Right.
but the encounter wasn't bad, which helped build trust. So for the next time, she was easier to say yes. And before you know it, the next place they went to was a hotel where there were 3 other men in the room. And it went into trafficking. So again, it all started with a simple chat. So asking the questions. So what's your favorite? What are your favorite social media sites? Why do you like that? Or let's just hypothetically, let's just say it's TikTok. As a parent, just get on it to see what it looks like. You don't
Yeah.
have to like it. Just get on it to see what it looks like. You Reddit, Twitch, whatever it is that they're looking at doing, even YouTube. You can find good and terrible things on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of whatever they're looking at. Ask questions, talk about it. Also explain just the technological safety stuff. Don't ever give your address. Don't ever give them access to your actual phone number. Ask
Yeah.
questions of people.
yeah.
Make sure that they are who they say they are.
Right.
Um, Even with high school age teenagers, there was a young lady, 2 months ago, I did a presentation. We were talking about stalking and bullying. And she was like, she broke up with her boyfriend because he was too controlling. I mean, just everything was about having to know everything. She's like, I can't do this. I'm sorry. Breaks up. Couple of days later, she gets a friend request. She goes to a big high school, gets a friend request. This person has 10 mutual friends. So she's like, wow, I wonder if they come to school with me. Didn't recognize, gonna go ahead and accept. Couple of days later, they start, chatting, direct messages, DMs, and that person knew the school. So she's like, okay, this is a student here. And they start talking about teachers and classes. Okay, this is cool. Now she felt guilty because she didn't recognize the person. She felt so guilty and so embarrassed that she didn't ask, who he was. She's just like, well, they go to the school.
Okay.
She said they were the most pleasant conversations that she had had in recent memory with somebody. It was nice to be talked to without being pressured, without anybody wanting something from me.
Right.
Fast forward a couple of weeks of them just chatting, he decides to be flirty. So that to her was like, do I want to do this? This is a nice person. We hadn't gone there, but they're really nice. I don't know. And before she even gets a chance to respond, another message comes. And this is where that person gave it away. It was something that only her ex-boyfriend knew. It was him. And what she ends up finding out, because they had mutual friends, his plan was, I am going to make a fake account. I am going to talk to her. I am going to get her to flirt so I can prove that she's not worthy or she was going to be unfaithful from the get-go.
Wow.
All of that stuff to reinforce that young man's insecurity.
Yeah.
So again, you never know. It just keep asking, as a parents, just keep asking the questions. How do you feel? How does it make you feel? If somebody's taking something that you enjoy, because most people do social media because they enjoy it, if someone's taking your joy and using it against you, that's not a good thing. We got to figure out how to get out of that, or how to redirect our energies, or how do we set our boundaries.
And how do parents approach that conversation? Because I know we as parents, we see a lot of things from the back end, and we're trying to figure out, like, when is it time? But when we know it's time for me to step in, how does a parent do that?
I would just start off with whatever signs that you're seeing. You're seeing the change in your child. Ask what's up, just straight up. And a lot of times they don't want to talk to us about those things. Explain to them why you asked. What's up? Oh, nothing. Well, I've noticed in the last couple of days, you just come home and you go to the room and I don't hear you. I thought I've heard you cry in your room. Is anything going on? How can I help you? Those kind of things. Or I've noticed that you're not eating anymore. I've noticed that your clothing, your appearance has changed.
Right.
You're
not talking to so-and-so anymore.
Whatever it is that you've noticed. And again, if they don't feel like talking about it, I'm here for you. But also reinforce that your role is the parent. If it gets to the point where I realize that this is a pattern and that pattern makes me nervous as a parent, I'm going to have to address it. I'd rather you address it with me, but I'm going to have to address it if you don't share with me.
Right.
And I think that's the safest way to put the ball in their court to start the conversation. But also, I think it's super important that they need to know that you notice. They need to know that you notice, because if you notice and you mention it in their brain, even if they think that you're being annoying, they know you care. And I think they need to know you care. Because so many teenagers feel like, if I wasn't here, no one would even notice. So,
what advice could we offer teens? Because I know we're talking about like the red flags, but the teens that are just experiencing heartbreak and dealing with the emotion that comes from that. What advice could parents offer in that moment when their kiddo's probably bawling their eyeballs out, just trying to figure out life?
Yeah, and if they don't want to talk to you, I definitely would, in a nice way, steer them away from just getting advice from their friends. Because again, when I talk to parents, it's the blind leading the blind. Just remember when we were kids. I remember talking to my friends about stuff, and they had no clue. And the rough and tough guys that were my friends would tell me to tough it out, and I don't even understand why you're crying, you're stupid. And then the guys who had no idea, they were just telling me in a whole bunch of different directions. If not me, is there a caring adult at school? Counselor, teacher, is there a caring adult at church? Because you don't want to talk to me. Do you feel better talking to your uncle? It has make sure it's a safe adult. You got to be safe adults, because good or bad, their peers aren't the only people abusing them sometimes. When I tell them about relationship abuse, I tell them we have relationships with lots of different people. And not only can your potential dating partner abuse you, but other people in your life can. So just tell them, another caring adult to you, that if you don't want to talk to me, you know, but, and I would tell them the way I would as a counselor, I would tell parents to say the same thing. But if you're going to tell somebody about somebody hurting you, if you're going to tell somebody about you hurting somebody, or if you're going to tell somebody about you wanting to hurt yourself, I need to know that stuff, because I have to help you.
Yeah.
I have to help you at that point.
Absolutely.
So to just again, give them that independence to make that choice, but they've got to know that you know. I think I don't know if you've ever seen. It just came out in the Super Bowl. There's this commercial, and it's for car insurance, but it's the commercial itself has nothing to do with car insurance. The man is making pancakes for his two daughters, and he's using all of their words, all of their lingo. Like sus, that's so sus, and this, that, and the other, and that's keeping it 100. And they're just like so annoyed with him. It's like, Dad, don't talk like that. Dad, don't talk like that. But it's basically because you're taking something that I thought was just mine, but you know about it. And the more you show them that you at least understand, that you know, they may go, oh, why are you in? But they know you know.
Yeah.
And that's super important, because in the end, for as much as they push away because they want independence, they also do yearn for structure, and they also do yearn for that person who raised me from small to still care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if teenagers feel insecure about their relationships or situation, what are the best resources or people they can turn to for that? I know you mentioned like the parents themselves, counselors in school, teachers.
Other resources, if they don't want to physically talk to anybody just yet, but they're interested, and this is for adults, and if you're a parent and you need a resource to understand how teenagers think and what their relationship stuff looks like, or if you're a teenager and you just want more information about relationship stuff, loveisrespect.org. Loveisrespect.org is that website is so awesome. It talks about what healthy relationships should look like. So it gives them the breakdown of that. It talks to you about warning signs and all the different types of abuse and how it can affect you. And then it even has a section on quizzes. Am I a good dating partner? Am I in a healthy relationship? If you already know you're in an abusive relationship, they ask you this one survey, and then they have another questionnaire. Is my abusive partner getting better? So it's a lot of good stuff to help you.
Monitoring.
Yeah, exactly. And I even tell parents and young people, I'm a middle-aged man who's married for the second time, and I take that, am I a good dating partner, quarterly. Because good or bad, all of us know the good and the bad we bring to relationships. Am I improving on the things that I know I need to work on? A lot of times I've noticed growing trend, horrible growing trend. Well, that's just who I am. You're going to either love me like this or not. And that's not true. That's not true. Yes, you are like this, but you're choosing to be that. Because if you didn't like being that, you wouldn't be that. You're basically telling everybody, I like being mean. I like being aggressive. I like being messy. Whatever it is that I'm being, I like it. That's them telling you, this is my boundary. This is who I am, my morals, values, and beliefs. And if you don't like that in your life, that's your turn to say, well, continue to be that, but I don't want that.
I don't have to be a part of it.
Don't have to be a part of it.
And again, I think that's the biggest resource for young people, if I'd say, other than other caring adults. But I will say one more time, parents, they're learning from you first. If you have a bad relationship, no matter what you tell them, they see that, and that's the first thing that comes to mind when the information comes through you. So it's almost like you're telling your kids not to smoke, and you're a smoker. And you're telling them that, and they're like, but you're always smoking. Or you shouldn't drink, but you drink daily. Well, I'm an adult and you're not. It doesn't take away from the fact that the actual actions happening. You don't be disrespectful to your mother, yet I'm always disrespectful to your mother. That whole, my dad, is the king of this. Do what I say, not what I do. And that honestly does not work with young people, especially the ones that are already working on independence. You know, they're looking for reasons why not to listen to you in the first place at this point.
Don't give it to them.
Don't give it to them. You know.
Thinking about resources for kids, now let's shift to parents. What are some resources that we can offer our parents if they're looking to gain more insight, practice some skills, build their toolkit?
I wrote some down because I share this with parents whenever I do parent stuff, and it just didn't pop in my head. First and foremost, again, loveisrespect.org. It's meant for teenagers, but if you want to understand how they think and how they're what's going on through them, that's going to at least give you the basis of what a good teen relationship should look like and what a unhealthy teen relationship is going to look like, and it's also going to reinforce our adult relationships. I found this wonderful. There's just on how to parent, help with parenting, period, not just about relationships, but in general, starting from young all the way into adolescent and older teens. The CDC, the Center of Disease Control, they have positive parenting tips, and it's multiple web pages, and it starts off with nutrition and all those things, but it talks about dating and what dating abuse looks like, and how you warning signs. And I think the coolest one, I found this one blog page. It came from I want to say it's Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, their government website.
Wow.
Again, when you Google stuff, you can find some. Yeah, just Google it. I found that website, and on that blog, it talks about everything from how do you first start that conversation? Have you had that talk with your kid yet? And if you did you talk about this? And these are the warning signs for you as a parent to already look for. And what resources do you use if you got to go further than just your conversation? And I think all that stuff is good. It like I said at the beginning, your level of engagement is going to dictate how these conversations go. And don't fret if you haven't had a high level of engagement with your teen for whatever reason. You have other smaller children that you have to focus on. You have an older parent, whatever it is that's pulled you away, you have to start re-engaging.
Right.
And it starts with asking questions, letting them know what you see, telling them that you're there for them, even if they don't want you to be there, that they need to know that you're there, but that you're gonna stay engaged. Most kids do go off the path when there's no one there telling them they're going to stay engaged. They just, I'm basically self-ruled at this point. I mean, I live under somebody's roof, but no one's really watching
Checking
or
on
paying attention to me, so
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever I want to do. When I talk to parents of younger kids, I'm just going to share this because I think it's good for everybody. I used to always tell parents, 3 F's and a C. Have to be fair. Have to be fair. The consequences, everything that you do has to be fair. You can't have unhealthy expectations or unattainable expectations. Be fair. And definitely another one for fair, especially if they've got siblings. You can't treat one way and treat one another.
Absolutely. They
So
see
many,
it.
so many young ladies have told me, well, my brothers can do whatever, and everybody should be held to the same stuff. Firm, the accountability, and fun. They've got to know you're fun. You have to be engaging, and that doesn't mean you have to be the life of the party or anything like that. It just means that you're willing to do those things,
That
or
they
to at least
enjoy.
encourage those things that they enjoy. And the C at the end of that is consistency. You have to be consistent as a parent.
Yep.
And again, I've talked to so many parents. It's just so much. Never mind, I'll take care of it. Just, you're just taking too long. Whatever it is that we do, or you know what, it's just easier for me to just give into that right now. And the moment, again, when they hit 10 to 12 years old, they're looking for reasons to pull away from you. And if you are inconsistent, it's like those kids that learn at a young age that if I go to mom for this, I go to dad for that.
Yeah.
If there's no support, if we're not firm, if we're not consistent, they're going to take advantage. And it's part of growth. I mean, it's not like they're being mean or manipulative. That's how we learn about people.
Yeah.
But you got to be firm, fair, fun, and consistent. And again, sounds super easy, really, really hard, especially when you're tired.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
but again, you want them to engage. If you've gotten to the point where you're for the first time trying to get engaged when your child is 14 or 15, I'm telling you, it's going to be super hard. You're going to have to find other adults that are going to help you with this positive reinforcement. You may end up even having to be the bad guy because they've already walked a path where they haven't had that.
Yeah.
So just understand that there's no quick fix.
No.
There's no quick fix. The more you're engaged, the more you're concerned, the more you show them what you know. It's going to help you out in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, because John was in here dropping gems.
You took a few notes. I saw
Yeah, I
that.
took a lot of notes. Hopefully, the insight that John provided for us today is something that will help you remain engaged and it will help you remain consistent in the life of your teen. I will put the resources toward the end if you want to tap into any of those, because I know for sure that we will. John has already been on our campus before, and the hope is that we get him back this semester to get in front of your students. So John, thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Being here. And also, parents, remember, you can always submit a staff. We'll have the QR code on the website right at the end of this video as well. Thank you for
Tuning in.
joining us.
Bye.
Thank you.